Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow Insight Global for more deep dive analyses into the stories shaping our world today. What just happened in New Delhi has stunned even the most experienced geopolitical analysts. India, a nation long seen as one of Washington's most reliable strategic partners in Asia, is suddenly charting a very different course. And this turn isn't neutral or subtle, it's aimed directly at the United States. For decades, Washington viewed India as the cornerstone of its Indo-Pacific strategy, a natural counterweight to China's growing influence. But recent developments show that the balance of power in the region has begun to tilt, and not in America's favor. The spark came from former President Donald Trump's decision to dramatically raise tariffs on Indian exports. His calculation was simple: apply economic pressure, force New Delhi to bend, and keep India firmly aligned with U.S. interests. But what he failed to anticipate was how much India has changed, politically, economically, and strategically. Today's India is no longer the passive ally of the past. It's a rising superpower, confident in its economic might and increasingly ready to assert its independence on the global stage. The first warning signs surfaced through reports from the Economic Times of India and the Financial Times, citing high-ranking officials and industry sources. According to these reports, India is seriously considering freezing large-scale projects by major U.S. corporations operating within its borders. At the very top of that list stands Apple, the ultimate symbol of American technological supremacy. For Washington, this revelation was more than troubling. It was a direct blow to one of its most successful strategic initiatives. In recent years, India had become the heart of Apple's China Plus One strategy, a calculated effort to shift production out of China amid rising tensions between Washington and Beijing. Just a few years ago, Apple made a monumental decision. After decades of relying heavily on China's manufacturing ecosystem, particularly Foxconn's massive plants, the company found itself caught in the storm of geopolitical uncertainty. Trade wars, nationalist sentiment, and tightening Chinese tech regulations made Beijing an increasingly unreliable partner. That's when Apple turned its gaze toward India. The reasons were obvious: an enormous and rapidly growing smartphone market of over 1.4 billion people, generous tax incentives for foreign manufacturers, and a government eager to present India as the next global manufacturing powerhouse. For Washington, this shift seemed perfect. It aligned with U.S. goals to contain China's rise while deepening economic ties with a democratic ally. Apple's multi-billion-dollar investment created tens of thousands of local jobs, projected confidence in the Indian market, and symbolized a new era of U.S.-India cooperation. But now, this partnership is under threat. According to sources cited by Bloomberg, India's Ministry of Commerce is weighing not only a pause on new Apple facilities but even the suspension of ongoing production lines. This, in effect, would cut off one of Apple's most critical global operations, sending shockwaves across the U.S. tech and financial sectors. The reason? Retaliation. India sees Trump's tariff escalation as a direct insult, a policy rooted in outdated assumptions that India still needs American approval to thrive. The Hindustan Times, quoting officials close to the government, reported that Washington has underestimated how much India has transformed. The days when it had no choice but to listen to the United States are over. India now has its own levers of influence. And those levers extend far beyond economics. Behind India now stands China, an ironic and unsettling twist for Washington. According to the South China Morning Post, Indian and Chinese delegations have quietly held several closed-door meetings in Dubai and Jakarta in recent months. Their discussions reportedly covered joint energy initiatives, trade settlements in national currencies, and strategic coordination ahead of the upcoming BRICS summit. If confirmed, this would represent one of the most dramatic geopolitical realignments in recent memory. For the United States, the stakes couldn't be higher. Losing India as a strategic partner would mean far more than losing access to its massive market. It would mean forfeiting the single most important counterbalance to China in the Indo-Pacific, a cornerstone of American foreign policy for over 2 decades. Western outlets are sounding the alarm. The Guardian calls it a geopolitical earthquake, stating that Trump is driving India straight into China's arms. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs warns, Washington misread India's rise. It is no longer a junior partner. It is an independent power center in its own right. For Apple, this shift could be devastating. Analysts at Counterpoint Research predict that by 2027, roughly 1 in every 4 iPhones worldwide was expected to be assembled in India. Currently, the iPhone 12, 13, and 14 are already being produced there, with major operations spread across Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. If India halts these projects, it won't just be a business setback. It could ripple through the global economy, shaking investor confidence and triggering a stock market reaction in the United States. In response, the White House is reportedly drafting countermeasures. According to Reuters, among the options being considered are restrictions on Indian IT firms and changes to U.S. visa programs for Indian engineers. But such moves could easily backfire. After all, Indian professionals are a cornerstone of America's tech innovation. From Google and Microsoft to dozens of Silicon Valley startups, Indian engineers drive much of the U.S. tech industry's progress. Any attempt to target them could end up harming America's own competitiveness. Meanwhile, India's public rhetoric is growing more assertive. Officials are speaking openly about national sovereignty and self-reliance. The message is unmistakable. India will no longer be dictated to. It will negotiate on its own terms. This shift has profound implications. If India continues down this path, we could witness not just an economic reshuffle, but a complete reordering of global alliances. The United States, once the undisputed architect of Asia's strategic balance, could find itself isolated, with only Japan and South Korea as consistent allies. Analysts at Handelsblatt in Germany put it bluntly. Trump may end up dismantling the very structure of U.S. strategy in Asia that successive presidents have spent decades building. In practical terms, this could become the greatest foreign policy setback of Trump's career. Because losing India means losing influence over the region that will define the global order of the 21st century. Yet perhaps the most significant takeaway lies deeper. India's actions reveal a new reality, one where emerging powers use economic strength not just for growth, but as a tool of foreign policy and geopolitical leverage. As India prepares to host the BRICS Plus summit, Financial Express reports that a major announcement is expected: the creation of new trade settlement systems in rupees and yuan, bypassing the US dollar. If realized, this could deal a serious blow to America's financial dominance, a cornerstone of its global influence for decades. For Washington, this would be more than a setback. It would be a signal that the world's economic order is evolving beyond its control. Trump's tariff gamble was meant to pressure India. Instead, it handed New Delhi something far more powerful: the political confidence to stand tall and say, "We are strong. We are independent, and we can say no to the United States." For many Indians, this has become more than policy. It's a source of national pride, a reflection of how far the country has come. And so, the world now watches as history seems to echo itself. Just as the United States once believed that deep trade ties would make China a compliant partner, only to see it rise as a global rival, the same story may now be unfolding with India. If that's the case, then the legacy of the Trump era may be defined not by strengthening American leadership, but by accelerating its decline. A world where the U.S. loses not just allies, but the authority to set the rules of global engagement. If you found this analysis informative, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow Insight Global for more powerful stories and deep explorations into how politics, economics, and power truly shape our world.